Hey, it's Father Roderick, and today we have to talk about The Wheel of Time, because the long-awaited Amazon Prime television series based on the books by Robert Jordan is finally here. And to my surprise, we got not just one episode, but we got 3 episodes. And then next Friday there's going to be episode 4, and then every Friday there's going to be another episode. So far, I've only seen the first episode, but I was so relieved by the quality of it. I was so taken by the cast. I was so happy with what they did that I wanted to share my thoughts with you. So I took a number of notes that I want to discuss with you. I'm going to tell you what I liked, what I loved, and there is not much that I disliked. So that's already in advance, in a nutshell, how I feel about this series. Now, I'm going to talk spoilers. So if you haven't seen this first episode, please do yourself a favor, and me, go and watch The Wheel of Time and then come back and let me know what you thought. Let's have a discussion about this. So let's first talk about the opening of the series. There are many differences with the books, and I think you have to change the story. And Peter Jackson did the same with The Lord of the Rings. Television, film is a different medium. It's not like a book where you can take your time and, oh my gosh, Robert Jordan really takes his time when he tells stories, and most of the books are like 600 pages. So obviously you can't do that in a television series because nobody would watch it. But what surprised me is actually they speed it up even more than perhaps they should have, because I think they really want to pull you in and let you know this is an adventure like you've never seen before. And so there is this cold open with a pursuit. And at first you're like, what is going on? Even I, who read the book, I was a little bit confused, like what's going on here? And very soon I realized, oh wait a minute, these are the red Sedai. These are trying to capture one of these false dragons. So, of course, as you know now, the universe of the Wheel of Time is about this cyclical time, this wheel of time that starts over and over again, and every time there are the same forces, the evil forces, the forces of good that are combating each other, battling each other, and then there is this one person, the dragon, who has destroyed the world before. And now in this cycle of the Wheel of Time, that person is reborn. The problem is, nobody knows exactly who it is. And another thing that we learn in this first episode is that apparently there is something like the Force in Star Wars. You know, there's this mysterious magical force that you can touch and that you can use. However, because of the brokenness of the world, only women can safely use that force. If men are trying to touch it and to use it, they're corrupting it. And it destroys everything. And especially this dragon who, you know, may again destroy the entire world, of course, is the pivotal figure of the entire saga. He's going to literally make or break the world in which all these people live. And then you have the false dragons, these people that think that maybe they are the dragon reborn because they have certain abilities to touch that force. However, since they are not the real dragon reborn, that is going to drive them crazy. It's gonna, and then if they're wielding this power without control and turning completely mad, then that of course can kill people. And that is why you see this chase at the beginning of the story where they're trying to capture this guy, this poor fellow. And they basically neuter him. And it's also an introduction to a part of this group of Aes Sedai. So these women form a certain society. It's all women. They're super powerful. They're very skilled in all sorts of way to weave the threads of this force. But the red ones are very dangerous and maybe even evil, because they have a certain cruelty about them, a certain coldness. Maybe that is why they were chosen to do these kind of hunts, trying to eradicate the world from false dragons. But anyway, I think what it does really well is, first of all, it's an exciting opening. It's a chase. It's like, oh wow, they don't really want to take their time, and it shows you what's at stake. This is about literally protecting the world against people that may use this force to destroy the world. And then after that, we move to a different group of women. This time it's not this powerful group of Aes Sedai, but this is a group of townspeople. These are women from a village in a kind of a shire-like environment. It's all very, very beautiful and peaceful, simple life. You want to live there, right? If you see that, it had the same effect on me as seeing the set of the Shire that they built in Matamata in New Zealand. I was like, oh, that's where I want to live. Like where we are currently, I call this my Hobbit corner. I recently moved into this rectory, and I wanted to create this corner where at least it evokes a little bit of the atmosphere of safety. You've got a fireplace. This is where I read my books, right? And I kind of feel a little bit like a hobbit. However, as you know, in good stories, a safe place, that's not a place to stay. You need to take the heroes out of their safety, out of their comfort zone, and plunge them into an adventure. And that is exactly what is about to happen to the protagonists of this story. The first few protagonists that we meet, besides, of course, this very short glimpse that we see of Moraine and Lan, we are first introduced to two young women. One is Nynaeve, and she is the wisdom of the village. So it means she is there to protect the village. She has magical abilities, but she's also there to heal people. So she is versed in all sorts of healing techniques, using herbs and whatnot. And we also meet Egwene. Egwene is a bit younger than Nynaeve, and when we first get to see them, she is about to be literally plunged into an initiation ritual, which involves water, strangely. Well, not surprising, actually, because it's like a little bit of a baptism. You know, baptism is, from the beginning, was a way to restart your life. You know, you step into the River Jordan, your old life is washed away by John the Baptist, and then when you rise from the water, like Jesus did, you receive the Holy Spirit, and it turns you into a new being. And so, baptism was an initiation, and is an initiation ritual. And in this story, in this world, there is a similar initiation for young women that grow up and then join this greater community of women of the village. And so part of the initiation is this shocking moment that we also saw in the trailer, where Egwene is pushed into a very wild river by Nynaeve, and the only advice that she gets is just let go, you know, trust the river. And then you get that harrowing scene where she's like almost drowning until the moment that she relaxes and she lets the river do its work. And of course, this sequence is not in there by accident. This is a symbol of what's going to happen to all our protagonists. They're going to be plunged into the river of time, if you want, and instead of fighting it, they'll have to learn to adapt to it and let the wheel of time propel them forward. That, I think, is why they included this scene at the beginning of this first episode, which is different from the book, but I really, really liked it. Then we go to Emmonsfield, to this small village, and we get to meet the three guys. And it's Rand, who is played by a Dutch actor, made me very proud because I'm Dutch as well. You've got Perrin, who is this strong guy. In this version of the story, he's married. And there is an an important reason. I'll get to that a little bit later. And we get to meet Mat. Mat is a bit of a, he likes to gamble. He seems to be a bit of a party goer. Maybe not the most honest guy, but also in this version of the story, we learn that he actually has a very troubled relationship with his parents, who are pretty terrible. And then he's very protective of his parents' two daughters. So his two sisters that are a lot younger than Mat. And so I loved how they were kind of enhancing the background on these characters that we know from the books. But I think, again, this puts so much at stake. You see where they come from. And so it helps us to familiarize with these characters much faster than in the book, where Rand gets a lot of attention in the first few books, whereas Perrin also quite a bit of attention, especially in the second book, but Mat is underdeveloped for a long, long time, and only after a huge amount of pages, then you get to know Mat a little bit better. Here, it's right there in the first episode. You're like, oh wow, I think I understand where they come from. And it gives background in a few shots, and it helps you attach to these, it makes you relate to these characters. And then, of course, Egwene comes back from her initiation rite from the river. I think her dad owns the inn where they meet, and we discover that Rand is actually in love with Egwene, which is also different from the books. So it's hinted at in the books, but it's not as explicit as in this scene. And then what I loved about the cast is how much chemistry there is between all the main characters, and how much their on-screen version, if you want, is just matches what I imagined when reading the books. I think they were spot on with the cast, and that's also true for Moiraine and Lan. I think they're fantastic, and there's so much going on also in the way they look at each other, the things that they say, the things that they don't say. The script is so well written and so intelligent and detailed. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Rand and Egwene meet up when the inn closes, and it turns out that Egwene has to tell him, Rand, I want to be a wisdom. So I choose, despite the fact that I love you, I choose this life of wisdom, which apparently is a celibate life. And so Rand understands this. And instead of fighting her or being mad or disappointed, he supports her. And he understands and he asks questions. And I thought it was a wonderful example of how you deal with people that tell you a truth that is hard to swallow, difficult for you to accept. Instead of, seeking confrontation, he seeks to understand, and he wants to support her. Apparently his love is not so superficial. Love can also be letting someone make her or his own choices and supporting that person, even if it's not what you wanted to happen. That also, I think, is going to be an important theme in the rest of the story. There is so much that you cannot control. And so letting go and accepting trauma in a certain way and carrying your cross, if I put it in a more priestly language, is very important in the story. And well, we'll discover what that means, and how different attitudes can influence the choices that people make. But what I love is that also for Rand, who is kind of the main character in the first book, in the first part of the story, you see where he's coming from. He too has a lot to lose. There's a lot at stake for him. And that sets up the emotion of the separation from this old life. There is a lot to love there in Emond's Field. And so the moment that you are torn away from the situation, you have all that emotional baggage that comes with you on that journey. So this is not an easy journey. This is not like, oh, I want to go on an adventure, it's going to be amazing. No, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, and every step forward is going to mean that you leave behind people you love and things you thought you could build upon. That makes for a very good story. And then Moraine enters, and oh my goodness, the perfect Moraine and the perfect land. Their chemistry, the way that they wrote these characters, the way that they are acted, it is so fantastic. I was really having a hard time imagining that they could find someone to play Moraine with all the ambiguity that she has in this first part of the story. I think also the scene with the red Aes Sedai helps us also not being certain about Moraine, which is also present in the book, where there's like, people are a little bit afraid of these Aes Sedai because they're so powerful. And especially if you're a man, these women are, you got to keep your distance. You never know what's going to happen. They can destroy you. And so, because we've seen that the other Aes Sedai can be so cold, so violent, you kind of wonder, what role does Moraine have? She doesn't enter the scene as like, oh, I'm going to fix things, I'm going to help you guys, I am the female Gandalf and I'm going to solve all your problems. No, it's more gray, and I love that about this story. So then we learn that the village is preparing an annual feast, and it's going to be the last farewell, you know, for one slight moment in time. You're supposed to think that everything is good. People are dancing, there is food, it is warm and welcoming. But the presence of Moraine indicates that this is about to change. And Moraine is there for a reason. She is looking for the Dragon Reborn, and she knows that it has to be one of these 5 young people, but she doesn't know who it is. And so she knows that if she is on the trace of the Dragon Reborn, then so are the evil ones. This is part of the story that we don't get to see that much. And they kind of withhold information. The book is more explicit. It immediately starts with this overarching story, which is very confusing, by the way, if you're a new reader. Like, what am I reading here? What is happening? But there is apparently this evil one behind the scenes, and he has his armies. But we don't get to see him, at least not for now. And I actually like it that they make us wait for that. They build it up. What we do see is that the village is being attacked by this gruesome army. There was already this eyeless, very creepy guy on the horse who was kind of scouting the area, and now he's sending in the troops, the Trollocs. Now, oh my goodness. When I was reading about the Trollocs in the books, I was like, they must look terrible, but I imagine something like the orcs in The Lord of the Rings. And then, of course, they had to do something different. But what? This is something I've never seen before. It's so scary. And these guys, they fight like monsters. And they are almost invincible. There's so much aggression. And that's also a bit of that came as a shock to me. It's like, oh, wait a minute. They are actually... This is actually trying to be Game of Thrones, in the sense that it's so violent and it's such an attack on the cozy feeling that preceded it, that all of a sudden you're like woken up. It's like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But the level of violence that we see, the panic, the fear, and especially, again, why did they give Perrin a wife? Why do they tell us that Mat has a family, or at least has sisters, and that his parents are not taking care of the sisters? It is to heighten the emotion during this scene, because you know that for all these characters, there is something super important at stake. We also get to see Rand with his dad, and they are attacked by a Trolloc. And then the old father of Rand takes a sword, and it's clear that he hasn't used it in many, many years. And he's trying to protect his son, and he almost gets killed. You know, the the axe of the Trolloc makes poison enter his blood. It's a little bit reminiscent of the attack on Frodo, you know, by the ring wraiths, where he's pierced and it poisons him. So also for Rand, he could lose his father, and so this fight is like, I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And the most heart-wrenching moment of the entire episode, and it destroyed me, was that Perrin accidentally kills his wife. And you see the shock on his face, and his shock is our shock. I was like, oh no. And then she's dead. It's not like Rand, he brings his father to Moraine and she's able to heal him. But for Perrin, this is a definitive loss, and it gives him such a baggage for the rest of the story. Yeah, wow, what an amazing choice to make. What a daring thing to do with the series. And Mat is trying to find his sisters, and you can totally relate to his panic. It's like, oh my gosh, my parents are lousy. They are not there to protect my sisters, and I need to do that. And so you see him all of a sudden, not just the party goer, but you see this responsible guy who wants to do what's right. And then that's when my favorite sequence starts of the entire episode. If there was only this one episode, I would still be so thankful for what we've seen, because this is when we see Moraine and Lan jumping into action. We saw them in this amazing bathtub scene, which was so funny, where Lan is like, can you heat up the water a little bit? And she uses her magical powers to heat up the bathtub. It made me think, like, maybe this is also a little homage to the famous bathtub scene in The Witcher. But anyway, it's not in the book at all. But it was just perfect. And it shows you the relationship. It's not a romantic relationship. These two have a very deep connection, and there's a deep trust, in the sense that they are even willing to be naked with each other in a bathtub, and you know, that's it. They know each other through and through. They have no secrets for one another. But that is why the subsequent fight is so impressive, because in the choreography, you see that they work like an oiled machine. And man, when you read the books, you just have descriptions. So you have to kind of have a mental image of like weaving the threads of this power, and how do you visualize something like that? Well, this is how you do it, and this is how you do it well. It was so powerful, and I was cheering Moraine on. It's like, yes, you can do it. And wow, it was even, and this is coming from a Star Wars fan, I thought it was more powerful than most of the scenes in Star Wars where they are using the Force or lightsabers. This was choreography on the next level. Unbelievable. It was the best sequence. Now, of course, despite the fact that Moraine is incredibly powerful and she has a huge control over this power, and she succeeds in destroying the Trollocs, she's unable to prevent death and destruction to happen. She has an incredible power, but it's still very limited. She knows, and it's draining her. You can tell that it's like asking so much of her. She's pretty stoic, but you can see that there are little cracks in her tenure, because it is a huge use of her strength, of her character, of, you know, everything she has. And so when the Trollocs are dead, she knows that there is no way to win this in the long term. They have to run. They have to go away. And this is the real call to adventure, to the adventure. You know, in the hero's journey, this is a pivotal moment. You know, this is basically, or in the gospel, you have this with Jesus who goes to the beach and he sees all these fishermen and he's like, come and follow me. And they do. They leave their old life behind and they follow him. They become disciples. And this is a similar situation where Moiraine tells these 5 young people, or actually 4, because Nynaeve has been abducted by one of the Trollocs, and we don't know where she is or if she's even alive. Well, of course she is, but still. Do you want to come with me? Actually, Moiraine says you have no choice, but there's always a choice, of course. You can stay, but then you're going to be killed, because look at those armies. They're coming for you. Follow me. A bit like Terminator, you know. Follow me if you want to live. A lot of good stories have that calling, that vocation moment. And what I like is that, especially with Egwene, she already has her own vocation story. The sequence with the river was almost a prelude to this definitive calling. This is when the real calling reveals itself. She thought that the river was dangerous, but this is life and death. This is way beyond her wildest dreams. But she had already said yes to this. And so now the next yes is going to be easier. And for all these main characters, there has already been the separation, this moment of loss. Mat has already almost lost his family. He knows that he's already lost his parents years ago. He has to let go now. Perrin has just lost his wife. What is there to keep him? He has already lost everything he loved, and so he also says yes. Rand has almost lost his father. His father revealed himself all of a sudden to be a warrior, which he didn't know. And he too, he knows, I gotta follow. If only for Egwene, because Egwene is following because she wants to find Nynaeve. So wherever Egwene goes, I need to go as well. So the 5 accept, and I think because the way in which they tell the story, you don't need that long speech that you have in the books where Moiraine is just having this long trying to convince everyone. But it's obvious from the way in which they tell this first episode that they're all ready now. They have no choice. They've already lost so much. They know what is at stake. And if they want to not only protect themselves, but also protect the village and the people that they love, they need to follow this woman, even though they have no idea what's going to be next. So, to resume, everything about this first episode is incredible. The production value is amazing. Of course, we know that Amazon Prime has poured millions into this. They want this to be a success, and they heavily invest in this. And it shows. But even with a lot of money, you can still mess it up. But thankfully, they invested in the right people to tell this story. And you can tell from the way in which they tell the story that these people have a very deep understanding of the Wheel of Time books and of what Robert Jordan was trying to do. So huge success there. The casting, I said it before, I say it again, is perfect. I love the chemistry. And we haven't even met all the main characters. There are going to be other characters introduced later on. I can't wait to see how they will interact and mingle with the existing group. The music is also good. It's different from what I expected. I thought it was going to be an orchestral score, just like with Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. But it's very different. It's very moody. It's very subtle. But I think it's a good choice, because you want to differentiate this series from The Lord of the Rings and from Game of Thrones. And music also really adds atmosphere and gives it its distinct feeling. And so sound design, music, I think it just works. It just works. The only thing I missed was a recognizable, hummable opening tune, like the Game of Thrones, da, 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 or Lord of the Rings, you know. Bum, bum, ba, bum. I want to have a theme like that. Maybe it will come. I don't know. So again, continue watching. Don't give up. Even if you had your doubts after seeing this first episode and you're like, this is just another Lord of the Rings. No, it's not. And this is certainly not another Game of Thrones. This story, I think, it appeals more to me than Game of Thrones. I think it has more it has more soul to it. Game of Thrones is sometimes so nihilistic, so dark, so there's no one is good. There's no one to root for. This story has a lot of people to root for. And that's, I think, what we need. These stories is what we need in these sometimes very dark and troubling times that we live in. We need stories of hope. We need stories of sacrifice, self-sacrifice for the greater good. We need stories with heroes that can show us in a mirror who we can be, you know, it has to be aspirational and inspirational, and that is what The Wheel of Time definitely is. So, gosh, I thought I was going to do just a few minutes. It turns out it's almost half an hour. Thank you so much for your patience. Hope you enjoyed this little fireside chat. I'll be back with another chat about subsequent episodes. If you like this channel and this is the first time that you're here, welcome. Subscribe and take a look at my other videos. There may be more that you enjoy. And most importantly, let me know in the comments what you love the most. Was this what you expected? If you have never read the books, how does it feel? You know, what is your initial impression of this story? If you have read the books, or maybe if you've read the entire series and you're an expert, I want to know your opinion. You know, how do you feel about what they did here? I am kind of in between. I'm not a total novice. I did read a couple of the books, but of course I don't know how the story is going to end. So I don't know the consequences of certain story choices or character choices that the writers have made. So maybe that is, I can't be very critical because I'm just like, oh, I'm seeing what I've only imagined so far, and it surpasses my imagination. And I think the television series in many ways improves on the books that I love so much. All right. I need to sign off. Thank you so much, and see you in the comments. Take care, and God bless.